Your Volkswagen is losing power, burning more fuel, feeling a little duller every time you press the gas. And the cause might not be your engine, not your turbo, not your spark plugs. It might be a part of your intake system you've never once thought to check, hidden just past the air filter, in the path that feeds air into your engine. When that path gets restricted, cracked, or poorly sealed, your Volkswagen can quietly compensate for months before you ever notice. And here's the unsettling part. Your check engine light might never turn on. Number 1. The air filter isn't the whole story. Every Volkswagen owner knows where the air filter lives. Pop the housing, swap the element, done. Engine's breathing clean again, right? Not quite. The filter is just one piece of a much bigger system. The housing, the seals, the clamps, the ducting, all of it has to work together. On turbocharged VW engines, air has to travel through that entire pathway before it ever reaches the turbo and the engine itself. Which means a brand new filter can't fix a cracked housing, a loose clamp, or a seal that stopped doing its job. Number 2. A clean filter can actually be a red flag. Here's something that catches a lot of owners off guard. You pull the filter, and it looks spotless. You think, great, nothing to worry about. But a filter that's too clean can mean air is bypassing it entirely, slipping past a bad seal or a hairline crack in the housing instead of passing through the filtration material like it's supposed to. That means dust and fine debris could be reaching parts of the intake that are supposed to stay protected, and because it happens gradually, your Volkswagen just keeps driving. Acceleration feels a touch weaker. Fuel economy dips slightly. Throttle response goes a little soft. Nothing that sends you straight to the shop, which is exactly why this kind of problem can hide for so long. Number 3. Your car's computer is covering for it, and so are you. Modern engine management systems are built to adapt. They constantly read airflow and adjust fuel and ignition to keep things running smoothly, even when something's off. That's great engineering. It's also the reason you might never notice anything's wrong. Instead of a sudden loss of power, your Volkswagen just gets a little less responsive over time, and you adjust right along with it. You stop thinking something's wrong with my airflow and start thinking the car's just getting older. The engine isn't necessarily telling you something has failed, it's telling you something isn't working as efficiently as it should. Here is what is actually happening behind the scenes inside your VW's electronic control unit, ECU. Modern Volkswagens rely on the mass airflow, MAF sensor, or manifold absolute pressure, MAP, sensor to calculate precisely how much fuel to inject for every single combustion cycle. When unmetered air sneaks into the system through a cracked intake duct, a warped airbox, or an ill-fitting filter seal, it throws off these vital calculations. Because air enters the engine past the sensor, the ECU undercounts the actual incoming air volume. Initially, the engine runs lean, meaning there is too much oxygen and not enough fuel in the cylinders. To protect the engine from damage, the oxygen sensors in the exhaust detect this extra air and signal the computer, which responds by adding extra fuel. This process is governed by what mechanics call fuel trims. The ECU will quietly enrich the fuel mixture by 5%, 10%, or even 20% to keep the air-fuel ratio within a safe threshold. Because the engine isn't actively misfiring, the computer treats this as routine adaptation and refrains from turning on the check engine light, which typically requires fuel trim deviations to exceed 20 to 25% before triggering a hard fault code. Meanwhile, all that unmetered dust and fine debris bypassing a degraded seal acts like fine sandpaper. It coats the delicate wire inside your MAF sensor, causing it to send sluggish or inaccurate signals. On direct injection TSI and TFSI engines, unfiltered microscopic grit combines with oil vapors from the PCV system, forming a heavy, sticky sludge that bakes onto your intake valves. Over time, this restricts airflow even further, compounding the performance loss. So while you are driving down the highway feeling a subtle lag under your foot, your Volkswagen's computer is quietly dumping extra fuel into the engine just to keep up, robbing you of power and fuel economy one tank at a time. Number 4. This matters even more on turbocharged engines. Turbocharged VW engines depend on a steady, unrestricted supply of air. Restrict that intake path even slightly, and the turbo has to work harder just to move the air the engine's demanding. That doesn't mean your turbo is damaged, but it does mean this isn't something to ignore, because checking a filter housing or intake connection is a lot cheaper than replacing a turbocharger. There's one more thing working against you here: time. Heat cycles under the hood slowly harden and weaken plastic and rubber components, so even a Volkswagen with relatively low mileage can have intake parts that have quietly aged past their prime. Number 5. Here's the inspection almost nobody asks for. Next time you're getting your air filter changed, don't stop at the filter. This 2-minute check is the difference between catching the problem early and paying for it later. Look at the housing. Is the sealing surface clean and seated properly? Any cracks? Check the intake ducting for damage or wear. Make sure every clamp and connection is actually tight. And if you spot dust or debris on the clean side of the filter, the side that's supposed to stay protected, that's worth digging into further. You don't need to start replacing parts just because something looks off. The goal is simple: catch a sealing or airflow problem before you start guessing at repairs. If you're not comfortable pulling intake components yourself, ask your technician to inspect the full intake path, not just swap the filter and call it done. This is especially worth doing if your Volkswagen has developed unexplained sluggishness, dropping fuel economy, or throttle that feels inconsistent. Because here's the thing: most owners miss completely. It's rarely a dramatic blockage. It's a seal that stopped sealing, a filter that wasn't seated quite right, a hairline crack in a plastic connector, a hose that doesn't grip as tightly as it used to. Small details, but the whole system depends on them. Your Volkswagen doesn't have to feel broken for something to be wrong with it. It just has to be a little less efficient every single day, until a little less efficient becomes the only way you've ever known it to feel. So next time you pop the hood, don't think of the air filter as one replaceable part. Think of it as the start of a pathway. Air in, through filtration, through the intake, into the turbo, into the engine. Every connection along that route matters. And if even one small section is restricted or leaking, your Volkswagen is quietly giving up performance you assumed was just the car getting older. The good news? An inspection like this is usually far cheaper and faster than replacing a major component. So before you blame the turbo, swap sensors, or write the whole thing off as "the car's just tired," make sure the air going in is actually taking the path it was built to take. Because sometimes the difference between a Volkswagen that feels tired and one that feels healthy isn't buried in the engine at all. It's hiding in the airflow just before it gets there. If this helped you see your Volkswagen a little differently, hit like, subscribe for more practical maintenance tips, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. And if you've ever caught a hidden issue like this on your own car, tell us in the comments. Your story might be the thing that saves another owner from an expensive repair.